This week on Fantasy Games 1.
Collapse. Reminds me of that triathlon runner. It was Chris Lee. Who, he just couldn't quite.
Yeah, feeling good on a Wednesday. Sparkling thought.
Never even run a triathlon. What's up, everyone? Hope you're feeling good for a Wednesday. My name is Byron Cobalt from byron-cobalt.com and a featured writer for FantasyPros. And this is Fantasy Games 1. Fantasy Games 1 is both a metric that converts fantasy points into your team's chances of winning, and it's also the name of this video show. It's like paper book. Clearly, I haven't been doing this for too long. Week 15 is in the books. So what we're going to do today is we're going to recap Week 15, but because this is the beginning of the playoffs for many of you, we're going to cut it down a little bit. So for those of you that are still with me, we have 6 things that we're going to go through in a recap of Week 15. We're in the fantasy football afterlife phase or something like that now. You're more likely to be experiencing everlasting fantasy football life if you had the player who won the week.
Do you even know what you just said? Oh, great Odin's Raven.
Week 15 was won by none other than Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, that's right. Christian McCaffrey, 0.43 fantasy games won. That means if he was in your starting lineup, you had a 93% chance of winning, all else being equal. Now, that's really good. Christian McCaffrey was neck and neck with Tyreek Hill, or not quite neck and neck. He was a little bit behind Tyreek Hill in the MVP race before this. And let's just say that when we do our awards show at the end of the season, it's not going to leave any doubt, especially for regular season awards. Christian McCaffrey is just the fourth best week of the entire fantasy season, in one of the weeks where you needed him most. In fact, the week you needed him most so far.
What is this feeling?
Could it be love?
Yeah, hopefully you've invested in some 49ers because they've struck gold here. Who would have known that leaving the Panthers, where he had one of the greatest fantasy seasons of all time, would end up being better for his fantasy career going forward. So hopefully you have Christian McCaffrey. Hopefully you picked him if you had a top 3 pick. And if you did, I will almost certainly see you next week. So good luck in Week 16. Thing 2, Tyreek Hill. The other one that was winning you almost every week up until now. So Tyreek was having an absurd season, but he didn't play in Week 15. And it was especially painful because Tyreek Hill was still started, apparently by 46% of fantasy managers. He had the off week in Week 14 where he left the game for a period. He didn't play in this one, but a lot of fantasy managers just left him in their starting lineup. Maybe some fantasy managers, their season was over by now, but if you had Tyreek, you probably were still alive, to be honest.
Soon there will be only 98% of us left.
46% started. That's a really high number for a player that didn't play. That's maybe the highest I can remember seeing, too. Tyreek, it's looking like we're having a late season collapse. Reminds me of that triathlon runner. It was Chris Lee, who, he just couldn't quite manage to get over the edge. Also evokes some of the worst playoff, round 1 situations of all time. Because if you didn't start Tyreek Hill, then you got you 0. And that was 46% of the time getting you 0. That's kind of similar to, it was 2014, Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck led all fantasy football quarterbacks in scoring. And then in the first round of the playoffs, which back then would have been Week 14, scored like 1 point. I don't know that will ever be topped as far as the worst letdown for fantasy football performances in the playoffs. This one came pretty close. Thing 3. Winter is coming. It's coming pretty close now. We're only a couple days away. You might be getting this on the first day of winter, but just because winter has arrived doesn't mean that Bijan has arrived, because Bijan is still not coming. I don't understand this. Bijan Robinson, negative 0.1 points at 98% started. He's really talented. You'd think you should start him. And negative 0.27 fantasy games won. I feel weird saying that fantasy managers know better than NFL head coaches, but man, this is like malpractice here for the Falcons and Arthur Smith.
You can't keep getting away with it!
If you have Bijan, you only had a 23% chance of winning. So if you're in the playoffs, you're probably done. If you had him, you probably didn't have a bye either, because you probably used the first round pick on him. Thing 4. Did I say 6 things? I meant 5 things. Cut 10 in half, you get 5. There are 6 playoff teams, but we're only doing 5 things. All right, thing 4. Dak Prescott and his buddy CeeDee Lamb. Now, this was an extremely effective stack for a couple weeks. In fact, you almost certainly made the playoffs if you had them. CeeDee Lamb was actually the 3rd highest scoring player in Fantasy Games 1. He actually still is, because CeeDee Lamb did okay this week. He was a little bit above average. But Dak Prescott, 6.1 points, 90% started, negative 0.27 actually hurt you more than Bijan did. So if you had that combination, maybe it wasn't quite as bad as Dak by himself. You were at cruising altitude for a while. Now you're trying to land the plane. It's the playoffs, and it's not looking too good.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Checking to see if Dak took a lot of hard hits. Thankfully, he didn't have any injuries like his foot injury from a couple years ago. Yeah, I always like to double check to see if players got injured when they do this bad, because sometimes, you know, you miss it. It does look like he actually got injured. I mean, your fantasy team is injured. Bring back the notes up here. All right, thing 5. On the JV All-Stars, the number 2 player, well, I guess Las Vegas defense is multiple players. That was an interesting tournament event, that game. Jared Goff was your JV quarterback all-star of the week. What's interesting about Jared Goff is the fact that he was only 17% started. Now, if you remember back to the list of the weekly winners, you had Sam Laporta, 88% started. Jahmyr Gibbs, 92% started. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 97% started. And Jared Goff, 17% started. You know, I was like, what's up with that?
What's up with that?
It's almost like there's an opportunity for some arbitrage calculations. Should we have seen this coming? If everybody being started so highly, but Jared Goff being started lowly?
We fight discrimination.
You know, it's like you can touch all these lines. They're a full fair game, but not Jared Goff.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
What about that shadowy place?
You must never go there.
If you did start Jared Goff, good job. You're probably riding your Gofflecopter into week 16. Apparently that's a meme. Rafflecopter is a meme? I didn't know this was. I'm glad I discovered that. All right, those are your 5 things. We only got a couple weeks left, and we got 2 weeks left here. So if you're still in it, hopefully your Gofflecopter is still at cruising altitude. But if not, well, we were all going down in this fantasy football ship together, so at least we're all on the same side.
I am on nobody's side.
We got a special video coming this week, so be sure to subscribe so you get to see that. Win or lose, we'll be back here next Wednesday. Good luck in the semis.
Right, that's it.